I'm Priscilla. So when I started thinking about the future of the news, I looked at myself to see why I didn't read the news more often or, even visit news websites. And what I realized was that much of today's headlines either made me very sad, such as seeing the news reports about the earthquake in Japan, or sometimes they made me angry, such as hearing that Congress had declared that pizza sauce was now a vegetable and could be served to children's school lunches. Or it just made me worried about the next generation. You hear that yet another round of budget cuts was made, and a lot of children now can't go take art classes in their schools. So what I realized also at the same time from doing some research over the past couple of days was that a lot of other people felt the same way that I did about the news. They felt sad, angry, and worried. When I asked them to think about a piece of news that had an emotional impact on them in recent memory, a lot of them said that that's exactly what made them feel. The other interesting thing, though, from my research was that a lot of people said that the news made them feel helpless. And part of the reason why I think that we might feel that way about the news today is the current model of the news. So let's say a news event happens, and we hear about it from the newspaper, Twitter, TV, or a mobile phone. And that's how we hear about it. It's very unidirectional currently. So let's say also that maybe that piece of news had an emotional impact on me. From my research, I found that a lot of people, when a piece of news has an emotional impact on them, what they like to do is they either like to share it with other people or tell them about it, or they like to research more about it, find more information. So once again, it's also very unidirectional. It just kind of goes one way. And of course, you can always just participate in the news by commenting or starting a discussion or hitting the like button. But what I see as the problem is that there's not a lot going back to the actual event. What I see missing, in other words, is that there's little being done to change the course of events or impact on the event. And furthermore, from doing research in from previous days, I found that when I asked people, what piece of news made you feel emotional, they said that it was usually a piece of news that they couldn't do very much about. And when I asked them, well, what would you like to do about it? A lot of times they didn't know. Sometimes they even said something like, oh, I wish people would just understand each other. Something very vague like that. So what I see here is a design problem, in other words. I see a lack of knowledge about what to do, and at the same time, very little time to research about what's available. And therefore, the design solution that I propose is React. It is an actionable news platform. So what is React? Well, React is a platform that lets you easily take action on a piece of the news so that you can begin to impact and change the course of events. Well, you might be thinking now, what might this look like? So here's an example scenario. Let's say I am reading the news on the computer, and I'm reading a story about an earthquake. And from reading about the death tolls and the threat of a nuclear meltdown in Japan, I feel kind of upset and worried. And after reading this news story, I see the usual social media icons to share or tweet, but then I also see this button that says Act, so I click on it. When I click on it, what I see is a panel of actions, of 3 actions, and there are things that I can do right now to start making a change in the course of events. The first one might be, text a donation to this number. You donate $5 from your phone bill. The second thing might be something that knows where you are located, and I'll tell you about a clothing drive that's 0.6 miles away from where I live that I can bring in old clothes to for the refugees. And the third thing, if I like going shopping, it may tell me about a Made for Japan charity shopping event at Etsy. So let's say I wasn't very interested in any of these actions. Well, I could always click on the More Actions link, where I would be brought to the React main website, and it would show me all the different actions that I could take. for this news event called From the Web. Now, when I say action here, I mean it actually quite loosely. This can mean starting a bake sale, it can mean backing a project on Kickstarter, it can mean just signing a petition, so it's very, very broad. Now, some of the things I want to highlight in this platform is that number one, it's very timely. So basically, it kind of gets right at where you're feeling very emotional after reading the news. The second thing is that it's invisible or blends in pretty well with existing systems. So just as how you can easily drop in a Facebook share button or a tweet button, you can also drop in a React app button, and people would be able to click on this to access the system. The third thing that I'd like to point out is that it's aggregated, so it will look through the web and crawl through it and see all the different things that are going on and see how they relate to the news. And it would not make really any judgment about what kind of actions there are. It'll just simply collect everything, regardless of your political affiliation or religious affiliation, and just put them all there so you can see what are all the things you could be doing. Now you might be wondering, what's the technology that can make this all work? And while I won't claim to be a developer, I think that it may be possible with microdata. So you may have encountered microdata, if you don't know what it is, in your Google searches or your Yahoo searches. So when you search for a restaurant, you see the address and the phone number listed next to it. Or when you search for a movie, you see the movie times or a link to the trailer. All of that is microdata, and what that is, it's semantic information about what the content of the web page is embedded in the HTML code so that search engines can pull it up. And I feel like something like this could also work well for React in deciding whether the content on the web page is actually an action or not. Now, the second thing you might be wondering is this actually feasible? I mean, we're talking about, the future of the news, and we all know that currently the journalism industry is kind of in a state of crisis. The way I see it is that if you get a person to act on a piece of the news, then immediately they become more involved. So they're more interested in what's developing on that piece of news and what any of the updates are. So overall, you get a more engaged user base, which is good for the news industry, I feel. Because you get people who are visiting these news websites more often, they're trying to look up content, and they may be wanting more in-depth coverage overall, so that they can decide how to react or how to act on this piece of news. So in the end, I feel that the vision for React is to basically empower people. It's to make people more proactive, but at the same time acknowledge that we're all very busy and that in the end we want easy ways to help out in the world. So, in conclusion, actionable news, I feel, results in a more engaged and empowered society that is able to make the change they wish to see in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla. Okay.
Which one? This one. Yeah.
Disha Grover is a master's student at NID, the National Institute for Design and Media. She's studying film and video communication. So this takes us outside of interaction design. This is one of the interesting things that we've had this year, where we had a wide range of people because of this topic. Thinking about this from outside of the traditional interaction design programs. She graduated in journalism from Delhi University, and during the course she interned with various media organisations, lots of organisations in a year. She's been doing a lot of really interesting work around water issues and documentary and the way that these things can kind of connect around social innovation and connecting people. Okay, without further ado, let's hear from Disha on, you know what it's about, the future of news.
Hi everyone, I'm Disha. I'm talking about the future of news today like everybody else here, but what's interesting to see here is that how all of us are somewhere taking photographs of the session through our mobile phones. Because that's what I'm here to talk about, how mobile phone technology is the technology that is going to steer the revolution of future of news. As of now, the way I see news, it's like over the past few years, the volume of news has been increasing. And if you see it from the side of the people, the volume is actually decreasing. Because news essentially has become unidirectional. I mean, where you're able to communicate what the problem is, what the news is, but people on the other hand are not able to go back and look at what news has become today, or kind of give any kind of an action or give what they feel about it. So people aren't really participating, they're just less involved, and therefore they have less interest in the information. So the whole idea of the state's message, if you come to think about it, is a very interesting way how we're all putting our news forwards. I mean, what's on my mind and what am I planning to do, or the things that are getting maximum likes is almost becoming what news is for me today. So thereby, my social knowledge today is becoming my social news. Bridging the gap between people and news, I think technology is helping interaction possible. So taking forward on this idea, what I understand is mobile technology has become a very quick, easy, and convenient way of letting people participate in the process of news making. So that's what I thought. As a non-interaction designer, I thought of a solution where mobile technology could help you shoot, then later online a quick edit, add a quick information, and eventually send it to a media organization that you essentially trust. So my news application helps you to become an active user, but in interactive news. Okay, so how do we get started about this? The way I see it is it's going to be a free of cost application. You can just register your username because that's quite important. If you're a registered user, I mean, eventually the information that you send out will be on your name, so it's credible information. And you can visit the library in case you're out of inspiration, you want to see what other people are doing all over the world. You can always visit the library, you can watch a demo on how each and every step is to be taken forward and what would essentially become responsible information. How do we do it? So let's go by the step-by-step guide. The first step is shooting the event. So the way I see this application is that you can essentially shoot the event, and if you want to shoot more, you can click on the plus button. Also, this particular application should become very user-friendly because the minute it gets complicated, I don't think too many users are going to, use this application at all. They'd rather just record it and upload it. So, I mean, just using visual iconography, with the plus sign, you can record more of the event, or you can go forward, which is the next step to shooting about a witness. I mean, somebody who's sort of encountered the same problem at the same event site, you go to the witness and you speak to that person. So that's just step number 2. Step number 3 is if you have any proof. As a citizen journalist, I think so many times when you're experiencing your own problems is when you have most of the evidences to yourself, and you need media intervention most of the time to take you there. So what if you could shoot your own proof that, say, I had a certain property was sort of encroached and this is my property and you want to shoot the papers, you can do that. And another step is to speak to a specialist, maybe speak to somebody in that particular society who has sort of given you that particular house on lease, or, you essentially speak to the specialist of that certain beat. Moving forward. Now, the telephone, actually the mobile is a very interesting device because it gives me ability to do visual telephoning. So, I can actually record a telephonic conversation or an interview that I'm having. I can record it on my phone. Or I can even do a Skype interview. So, using a smartphone, I can Skype with someone and immediately record it. The 7th step is to add any other information that you think could be interesting. And the last step would be to do your own piece to camera. Like all journalists, you give your own opinion because that's the most important thing in citizen journalism. The last step is to add any other information. This is a very important step because you're filling out crucial details that have not been covered maybe in the story, and you just can kind of fill it into the form. And the last step, I think this is about all those whistleblowers who would probably want to keep their identity anonymous. You could just there would be an option where you could sort of keep your identity secret and still send your user code so that media can probably follow it up, if not take the story forward under your name. I'm looking at some of the features that I'm kind of thinking about this application, which is about adding an interview info. This could be like a ticker, which could kind of go in with every video that you add. You could blur identity on the basis of whether that person wants to confide into you and not with the other media people, let's say. So that person kind of speaks to you directly. You can blur their face or their identity and move forward. You can add music, make notes, insert photographs, or even skip to the end if you, for the lack of time. You can watch the demo, visit the library, etc. So this feature also gives you an online edit option because this is, if for the lack of time you just wanted to auto-edit it, all your information sort of comes together. But if you want to sort of sequence the events and you want to do it yourself, you can even do that. Now the additional feature, what I was thinking for the media houses would be to how they could sort of unpack the information from a packed information, because if they want to use a certain part of it, that's what I guess unpacking will help them do. The third step is you can immediately link it and upload it to media channels if you don't trust any of the media houses, you could just like link it to the My News website. So you can essentially choose the places you trust, or you can just like link it or upload it to the My News website, where I think people from all over the world would be probably sending in their videos. So maybe an information which is a global information but not a local information would start interesting me more. And that's a way how I can connect to someone else's news. And therefore there's this, again, the whole cycle of social interest towards global news now. Okay, so what is essentially the role of journalists here? When I look at journalists now, because if people have this ability to kind of shoot their own news, what do journalists become? Journalists essentially become researchers or fact checkers. So they are following up on your story, and if media intervention is required, they pursue it. And editors become media gatekeepers. What goes on at the 9 o'clock news could be probably decided by the editor, but essentially you have voiced your opinion. So you have got that sense of freedom to speak, essentially. And also so many times that you're working as a journalist, you realize that you may not have information, but you're going out and you're digging up information. So essentially getting a lot of sensational information into the whole circuit. But if people are kind of delivering you the information and then you're kind of looking through it and going through information that would probably make the most sense, I think this could be an option. I was actually inspired by the whole idea of this particular film. This is an Academy Award film. Zana Brisky's Born in Brothels is a very interesting experiment and a successful experiment with citizens, because she was able to come to the Sonagachi Valley in Calcutta and she was able to give these cardboard cameras to all the citizens. Not exactly all the citizens, about 8, some of these 8 children. And she taught them photography and she taught them how they could probably venture into the valley and record this information and come back. So an area which was inaccessible to her and unknown to her was brought out. Some of the most dark and deep secrets were brought out by these little kids who later on got education on the basis of their photography skills and their values. So I think if citizens are informed of how to use technology, their stories and their experiences are things that they can best share. So, what is it doing to the citizens? Various initiatives have already been taken if you think about it. You have YouTube always, which is constantly, with which you have to keep putting your information, and you have MePorter, you have Ustream, you have various other ways of shooting the information, but then again it's making a YouTube space, right? You can just shoot and upload. What about the whole interaction with sending it to media or seeing it at various places? So basically, it gives citizens, it makes them independent, it helps them voice their ability. And the way I see it is less of an app, but more of an ability to help you opinion your concerns and look at the world in your own way and tell the story that you've felt so far. So if I look at it, this is a behavior shift from news gatherers to news makers, and I obviously, since I'm asking citizens to become actionable, I'm also looking at the incentives that are given to the citizens. So, okay, some of the thoughts why not. Information will be biased, no objectivity. Quality of news will be decreased. Would people be responsible with news? Journalists will be limited to researchers and fact checkers. Thoughts? Why not? Growth in literacy, in growth in education, people today are intelligent. In times of pressure and distress, we trust citizen journalism, even journalists are subjective. We Google sources, but we don't abandon everything on Wikipedia. The business of news begins with leads and stringers. It's all about trusting people who are eventually the real sources. Finally, when I look at this song, which gets so many likes and so many hits on YouTube, Kola Veridi, I think. I don't know how many of you know it, but it's this Tamil song which is sung and sung over and over again, and people have done remix versions and they've jived to the beats, they've connected with the music, not because of the language, I think, because essentially that song means to kill. But because I think they feel a certain connect, and I think that's what video is all about. You may not know the language, but you definitely know the emotion. You know what the person is experiencing. So it's essentially that I see is quite possible through this technology. One of the quotes by Mahatma Gandhi which I really like is, "Be the change that you want to see in the world." And I think it begins with this technology. I may not exactly be an interaction designer, but I do know that if we do need a change, it needs to be now. If we can give wings to an ability which can sort of take forward, if we give wings to ability which is there right now, I don't seem to know that why we should wait for a design which would be perhaps more futuristic. So, thank you so much, and hope you guys have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Disha. Thank you to all of our finalists. Okay. We also need to say thank you very much to our major sponsor, Thomson Reuters, for making any of this possible. These finalists have come from all around the world. Thomson Reuters has been so fantastic.